Okay, you can hear me now. You can hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, so I'm Pete Didishiem. I'm the Advocacy Director for the Natural Resources Council of Maine. And with me is Al. Al, introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing, folks? Wonderful to be here. I'm Al Swett. I'm with the Maine Snowmobile Association. We've been in business for over 57 years, and this is one of our best accomplishments that we've been involved in.
So I'm going to jump right into an overview of the campaign that we had over the last couple of years to pass a $30 million trails bond at the ballot in November. And I'll give you the kind of the legislative strategy, and then we got into the ballot measure strategy. And even though Alaska and Maine are quite far apart, I think you'll see a lot of similarities. Maine has an extraordinary number of trails. We have a lot of trail users. We got a lot of trail clubs. And these trails are a significant part of our economy, but they are significantly undervalued, and we don't invest in our trails. And a lot of people have thought that trails are just self-maintaining, and many of our clubs that put in just heroic efforts to maintain our trails are increasingly vocal about the need for investment in our trails. So let me kind of just walk through the Trails Bond campaign that we were involved with. Again, lots of trails, snowmobile trails, ATV trails, hiking trails all over the state. We've got close to 6,000 miles of ATV trails. We've got close to 14,000 miles of snowmobile trails, big networks, lots of clubs associated with these trails. We also, of course, have tremendous hiking trail opportunities. More than 1,100 trails are on Maine Trails Finder, more than 6,000 miles of hiking trails. And these trails are an important part of our economy. Just the snowmobile sector alone provides at least 600 million to our annual economy, and it's probably more than that. Snowmobiles and ATV machines are a big part of the economic structure of rural Maine. And Maine invests almost nothing in our trails, and this is true across the country. I think people just take our trails for granted. And it got to the point recently where we realized that we need to change this because there's a growing need to have quality trail and trail experiences to help build that outdoor recreation economy, which is an important part of Maine's overall economy. And we do invest a lot in highways. So almost every year, we have been investing in a bond of $100 million every year, nearly every year, in on-road infrastructure, but we really don't invest in off-road infrastructure. And so we decided that we need to change that. And so we developed a piece of legislation from the outset that we developed in the fall and early winter, fall of 2022, early winter of 2023. The bill was bipartisan from the get-go, and everything that we've done in this Trails Bond campaign has been bipartisan with leading Democrats, leading Republicans, and independents. And it's been a broad coalition approach that we have pursued, which is critically important for getting buy-in and involvement and support across the state. So the Maine Trails Bond that we developed, $30 million bond, $7.5 million would be released per year over 4 years, managed by our Bureau of Parks and Lands, which manages our recreational trails program, which is federal funding. The grants would be provided in 25% for non-motorized trails, 25% for motorized trails, and 50% for diverse use trails, more than one use. And we have a fairly low match requirement of 10%, and that 10% can include in-kind contributions. So we launched the campaign beginning of a legislative session with a broad coalition representing multiple different user groups and with lead speakers who were sponsors and co-sponsors of the bill. We then did a lot of media. So we paid a lot of attention to identifying messengers from the ATV community, snowmobile community, economic development experts, legislators, people who are respected around the state who helped build public support for the Trails Bond. And then over the course of two legislative cycles, we didn't get the bill through in 2023. We came close to getting it reported out of the Appropriations Committee, but we decided it was late in the session and people were cranky and we weren't confident that we would get the two-thirds vote required in the House and Senate to send a ballot measure, a bond measure to the ballot. So we used that summer and fall and into the next legislative session, 2024, to build a really big statewide coalition that included 520 organizations, businesses, and towns that all endorsed the Trails Bond. And this included 75 cities and towns, 168 businesses, 41 ATV and snowmobile clubs, 43 statewide organizations, 193 local organizations. We had the Chamber of Commerce, LL Bean, Maine Municipal Association, Snowmobile Association of Maine, and lots of mountain biking and bicycle and cross-country clubs as well as Maine Outdoor Brands, which is the umbrella organization for outdoor recreation businesses. And we did a lot of lobbying at the State House. Al is in this picture. We have the head of ATV Maine in this picture, a couple of economic development experts. A person from Eastport drove all the way to meet with the guy on the right who's a critical Republican on the Appropriations Committee. And we had a lot of storm damage that particular year that made fresh in people's mind the impacts that our trails had received and the importance of investing at least in repairing a whole lot of bridges and washed out trails that are critically important for all sorts of trail uses. We then were able to get, which was quite remarkable because a lot of people didn't think this was possible in that particular legislative session. No one thought we would get any bonds approved, but we did get a 13-0 unanimous vote out of the Appropriations Committee. We'd spent a lot of time lobbying those legislators to report out a unanimous recommendation to the House and Senate, and then we got well over the two-thirds requirement in the Senate, 29-3, and way over the necessary two-thirds requirement in the House of 133-6, which meant that it was then sent to the ballot. It was signed by the governor and then sent to the ballot. We launched the campaign in early September of 2024. There's Al, there's a lot of heads of organizations that were at this initial launch. We started raising money in August to build up a $100,000 budget for the purposes of implementing the campaign. For that campaign operation, we created a ballot question committee. These are the organizations that were part of the executive committee that helped raise the money and then make the decisions about how we would spend the money for digital and other promotion activities, which included a digital toolkit that we provided generic content to all of those 520 organizations to spread out to their members, bumper stickers, a website, yard signs, placards for businesses to display in their windows. And we did a lot of outreach events. We got a lot of promotional material out to different organizations that they could distribute at their events. I'll try and see if this video works. We'll see if the sound comes through on this. And let's see if this. So let's get back out of that.
That playing for you, Pete?
Did that play?
No, can you try again? Or it might just be the...
I can try again. It definitely played for us.
Oh, great. It might just be the window that you're sharing. If it popped into a new window, you might need to share the new window.
Uh-huh. Let me just try that again. And if we fail on the second try, we will. You got the video? Hold on a second.
Yeah, we're still seeing your presentation page. Don't worry though, folks in the room made snow machine sounds, so we all got the vibe.
Did you? How
We
about
all went,
now?
"Crap."
You're not getting it now either?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let me get out of this. Okay, so what I'll do with that is I will send that to you and you can share that as a on a
That'd be
okay, let
awesome.
me just
If you send us the link, we'll play it during the break.
we'll do that. Okay. So this is the 30-second ad that you didn't hear, but you got a little bit of the vibe of it. So this ad we did it was a digital ad. It was most of the budget was aimed at targeting key voter segments, including infrequent voters statewide, Republican women in the 2nd congressional district, and outdoor lifestyle voters. We used an organization, Hamburger Group Creative, which is a DC-based ad firm that we've used before to help do the modeling and the placement of the ads. You can see here's the stats of nearly 4.5 million impressions, 1.2 million video plays, the click-throughs, the video completion. Those were all very competitive and performance figures for that ad. And it worked. We ended up passing the Trails bond at the ballot, got quite a bit of enthusiasm around it statewide. And importantly, there were 2 other bonds that were on the ballot, a research and development bond and also a historic preservation bond. And the Trails bond, which was actually the largest of the bonds, you can see the green distribution, which is where it passed, was much broader, and we got a higher vote count than the other 2 bond measures. We're pretty sure it's because of the effective digital ad campaign that we used. This map shows that the Trails bond in Maine was the only bond that passed in 112 towns, and our digital ad campaign included target voters in every one of those towns. So we think that our digital targeting was part of the explanation, in addition to the fact that we had just elevated the conversation about the importance of trails and investing in trails as part of Maine's economy. We did win in 14 of the 16 counties, and the 2 that we didn't pass were very close. And this was much higher performance than the other 2 ballot measures, question 2 and question 3, didn't reach nearly as many counties in terms of their overall vote. And importantly, the Trails Bond was just launched officially. The grant overview and grant guidance and announcement of the Trails Bond has just happened a couple of weeks ago, and workshops are starting to be held online and in person to help coach and inform interested parties in how to apply and how to fill out their application. And the deadline for grant applications will be at the end of September, and our hope is that awards will be made for this first $7.5 million shortly thereafter. So it'll be within a year of the vote. We hope that that first $7.5 million will have been dispersed. So why don't I stop there, unless Al, you want to jump in and add something before we get to Q&A?
Okay, I would just like to say, we all work together on this deal. Everybody, the guy on a mountain bike, the guy that rides a horseback, the cross-country skier, motorized, non-motorized, and it really worked. It was awesome. And like I said earlier, it was a really good feeling day back in November when that passed statewide, and only 2 counties that didn't approve it. And I kind of scratched my head on that one because they have a lot of snowmobile trails in both those counties, but that's okay. We did what we had to do, and like Pete said, the money will start going out this fall, and we want to really encourage the people to apply for those grants and make that happen. We've gotten a lot of feedback already about it, and that's a really, really, really good thing. So, and it comes at a time where we had some really bad high water and wind damage to our trail system, and like your trail system, every one of our trails connects. We start from the southern part to the northern part, the east, the west, and our ITS system all connects. And if we lose a piece of that puzzle, That supporting business that's been with us for years is hurting. But with that money, we really are going to be able to fix those bridges and the washouts. I mean, we had washouts, 20 feet deep in some spots that completely eliminated going from point A to point B. But this is going to make it happen, and I'm pretty proud of Pete for all he did. He's the mastermind behind it. He really was, and we had a great team. And I hope you folks will hook onto it and do what you got to do too. You all got to work together on it. It's no like back in the past here, it's been four-wheelers, ATVs, and snowmobiles. Snowmobiles, we made those trails and you guys got to stay off them. But we've overcome that. And that's what you all have to do and overcome it to make, your place a true destination point. Maine is a big destination point for everything now. I mean, we're like third in the nation, lower 48, like you all talk about, behind the Upper Peninsula and Yellowstone to ride a snowmobile. And that's quite a compliment for us because our trails and our clubhouses are built by volunteers. These guys don't get paid for that. We only have 2 or 3 clubs that actually pay their groomer operators, but this is really going to help a whole lot. And I hope everything works out for you folks. And I'm very honored and humbled to be asked to be on this with you folks, and God bless you all, and thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, thanks to both of you gentlemen for being here with us today. I'm gonna see if there's any questions in the room. Who's got a question for Pete or Al here about their project? I've got questions if no one else does. Yeah.
First, one, bring it forward. I mean, obviously it's a huge coalition. I'm here like, all right, who in this room is going to be the one to bring it forward, right?
Yeah.
So who are some of the founding key starters of this initiative?
Yeah, so gentlemen, the question for you is who was like the linchpin first person who started this and then kind of percolated the idea into the coalition? If there was a single originator.
So I would say that it's the idea emerged at a listening session that our board of directors had in a rural community, Farmington, in the state of in the Western Mountains in the state, and we're the statewide environmental organization, and we spend a good bit of time in rural communities just for the purpose of listening to get a sense of what is important and what are some projects that might be of value to them. And in that listening session, there was an executive director of the High Peaks Alliance said, in our region, trails are becoming an increasingly important part of the amenities that people are moving here to take advantage of. And there's been a significant influx of people who are specifically going to that part of the state because of extraordinary outdoor recreation opportunities. And he said, none of us are investing nearly enough on our trails. All of our trails need work. And wouldn't it be great if we could get a bond that invested in our trails? So it was really me hearing that and running with it and starting to build a coalition, recognizing this has to be a big tent coalition for us to get a 2/3 broad bipartisan vote in the House and Senate. So I think NRCM was the catalyst organization, but so many people played really critical roles. There's no way that we would have passed if it wasn't for a lot of involvement and just real, broad-based coalition work.
Thanks. Yeah, we've got another question, Ricky.
How is the bond paid off?
Yeah. Question in the room for you, Pete or Al, is how was the bond paid off, or how will the bond be paid off? What's the funding mechanism?
It's a general obligation bond, so it'll be paid off, at the government interest rate. So yeah, there is, and that's why some counties and some voters didn't vote for it, because it is borrowing money to invest, as we do on, roads and many other transportation areas. So we were able, because of the broad coalition, to get a number of Republicans to vote for this bond. And it was the first bond they've ever voted for. They just, as a rule, they have felt that it's inappropriate to borrow any money. But in this case, I think people were persuaded that investing in these trails will bring back more than the cost of it. If you look at the full value of to our economy and a quality of life, people recognize that, in fact, these trails are not self-maintaining, and we've been neglecting them. And it can be increasingly a part of our economic brand as a state, as being a state with extraordinary trails.
Yeah.
So I wonder now, the bond do now private organizations have to ask for the money to the projects?
Yeah, the question in the room is now for money for their projects.
So most of we're in the middle of a grant. The grant, our request for proposals has been announced, and goals will be submitted to Bureau of Parks and Lands for the Maine Trails program. And there'll be a review committee that's like our Rec Trails program committee. There's a score rubric for how they will make decisions, and we hope all the decisions will be made by mid-October. Applications, my guess is you're going to come in from nonprofit organizations or from groups of trail clubs, and each of those applications, one of the scoring criteria is a demonstration of community support or broad-based support. We're hoping that applicants are connecting with businesses, connecting with their towns, connecting with the general public, and submitting applications that demonstrate a lot of support, including some additional financial support above and beyond what the grant request is. There is a limit in this first year of, I think, $200,000 per grant. And we'll see how that goes. But I think the hope is that it'll be distributed broadly across the state, and it will leverage a lot of additional investment.
Nice. And the required match was 10%?
Yeah.
But you're probably hoping for more?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Cool.
wanted it to be a fairly low barrier of entry for small clubs.
Nice. Go ahead.
Is Maine experiencing crowded trail conditions at your popular trailheads? And if so, what's your strategy for dealing with it?
The question in the room is Maine experiencing crowded trails and trailheads? And if so, is there a strategy for dealing with that?
We have crowded trailheads when there's only certain areas of the state that have snow. The last 2 years has been pretty sketchy around here, but this year we had snow statewide, so everybody was spread out, which was awesome. It went fast because spring came early, but yeah, we have park and rides also and things like that will work, that do work, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
What was that dollar amount figured out? What was the process through going through deferred maintenance costs? There was obviously some weather events that occurred to help that, but how was that process figured out throughout the state of getting that dollar?
Yeah, the question in the room is, how did you guys settle on $30 million as the amount? Did that come from a deferred maintenance list? Did that come from someone saying Maine voters will never support more than 30 million? How did that come about?
It was more of the kind of a gut of what we thought the legislature could plausibly support. I mean, sometimes you go in with 100 million for a bond and you end up with 10. We decided that let's just go in with what we think, if we put together a really good campaign, we could get out of the process, and let's don't negotiate. Let's just stick with 30 million over 4 years. There were a number of people that said, you're never going to get a bond. You're never going to get the Republicans to vote for a bond. You might as well just try to get 5 million out of the appropriations bill and call it good. And we never let up on the idea of a 4-year distribution of $30 million because we wanted to facilitate a conversation statewide about the value of trails. And we wanted the voters to own the outcome so that they feel part of the success as trails and trail clubs succeed in in achieving projects that bring value to their communities. So I think we just didn't want to go the invisible route of getting something into a budget. We wanted to prove the doubters wrong, that we could actually, if we connect with enough voters and tap into their own personal love for trails and their awareness that this is an emerging, trending area for the state economy, that we could succeed, and we actually were able to pull it off. We had some great legislators who also were super important within the process, who have trails clubs or they are trail users that were champions throughout the process on both sides of the aisle. But we spent most of our time talking with Republicans because, you know, that they had the leverage in whether this would win or lose.
Yeah, follow up.
So to follow up with that, was there any hardline data on trying to convince some people of that, of any deferred costs? It just sounds like it was a number that was just spitballed out and no hard data potentially used for that.
Yeah, the question in the room was there any hard data that like helped inform that $30 million besides like, we think people will support this? Do you have a list of deferred maintenance that says like across the state of Maine, there's $100 million of deferred maintenance? Or do you have, you know, numbers from your state parks or something like that?
There is state park and public land deferred maintenance estimates that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars that includes trails, but includes some other stuff. I think in this case, that data didn't exist, so we relied on anecdotal data where trails clubs brought forward in their testimony on the bill examples of what the trails bond could help them achieve. And then we did have those big storms and we captured a lot of photos of the damage caused by those storms, and that was quite persuasive. I don't think people needed to have estimates. They could see with their own eyes, yikes, we've got a lot of trail work that needs some investment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Pete, can you talk about the development of that project selection or application process, or the criteria used for that, and what role that played in getting this passed? And I think maybe my specific questions are, did the legislators have influence in that? And did you guys have to address any kind of infighting between user groups, making sure that, oh, this set of criteria is going to get our projects done or not? Like, can you speak to that process a little bit?
Yeah, Pete, if you didn't hear that, the question.
Yeah, no, I heard it.
Okay.
It's a very good question. So the lawmakers have not been involved in the details of the guidance for the program. The original bill is introduced, did have a slightly different ratio of distribution of the funds. 30% was going to go to non-motorized, 20% to motorized, and 50% to multi-use. And that was based on the idea that the motorized trail users are getting funding from the gas tax and from registration fees, and the non-motorized trails really have no source of money other than a little bit from the recreational trail program. But we quickly heard that if this big tent approach is going to work, we just need equity across the board in access to the funds. The guidance that was developed for the Maine Trails program, I can send you the link to that guidance. That was, we used our recreational trail program guidance document as the basis, and there was a good bit of input. I think that there's still some concerns about whether it is still a little bit too complicated for some of the smaller volunteer groups to really pull together a application successfully and compete effectively. So we have had some additional meetings recently, and I think we will continue. There's a commitment from the Bureau to make sure that there's this that this is as simple a process as possible while still meeting the, financial accountability obligations of the state in utilizing public monies. So I think it's still a little bit of a work in progress. There's a little bit of still a little bit of infighting and uncertainty and jockeying. Everybody wants to be sure that they have that it's a a level playing field. And we just had a meeting this morning with with two of the ATV clubs who are raising these very issues. So and we had a meeting recently with some legislators and key members of of the um, the the department and bureau and commissioner and program director and the Maine Snowmobile Association, because they, also have some of these concerns about the volunteer clubs. Just they're not into the business of writing grants. So how do we make sure that they're going to be able to do that? So we're committed to trying to help the small clubs participate to the maximum extent possible. So there'll be some learning, and it's not going to be totally smooth, but we're pretty confident that we will have some really significant projects and a lot of clubs and participants who will be able to achieve things they've wanted to but didn't have the money to do.
On the snowmobile side, we're having a, like Pete said, put groups together and make that happen with that. We talked this morning about it, getting groups together because, heck, a lot of folks are 70, 75 years old that we have in our clubs. And like he said, we don't want, they don't want to be messing around with all that paperwork. So we're going to try to get some clubs together in certain areas throughout the state and make that happen. Have an instructor, so to speak.